All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic.
Got it. We've now covered virtual AI, real-world AI, AI data center operators. What's next on your list? Here are the remaining major sectors we haven't touched yet. GPU, AI chips, NVIDIA, AMD, etc. RAM, memory, energy, especially Bloom energy. QPU, quantum computing. Which one would you like to move on to next?
How's it going? I'm Malcolm Grubb, CEO of Lead Automation Lead Properties and an investor in Tesla. Today, we're actually going to do some stock deep dives. Well, not really stock deep dives, but basically, I'm building out my investment strategy, my investment analysis, and I have some other previous videos that I made that basically everything from the initial thesis of it to some different things. I'm just gonna give you a high level overview. If you want to see in depth, you can go back and watch like the first video and then go from there. Basically, our investment thesis is everything AI related. So we have direct AI investments, we have AI infrastructure, and we have ancillary growth. So a couple of the key things is you have virtual AI, real world AI, physical data centers, and basically the whole premise is that we're investing in things that are AI related. I think that AI is the absolute future for us. Now it's just a matter of kind of choosing the right things and also trying to find some diamonds in the rough, find some companies that other people are not thinking of. And so I'm using Grok. We're having a conversation, and I'm kind of building out everything that I have brainstormed in my head already because I haven't really put a lot of it on paper, or I have put it on paper, but it's kind of like scattered like by like the different like companies and or like some of the different categories or sectors. But I've not really ever compiled everything in one full thesis with like a breakdown of everything individually. And I wanted to do that just so I can kind of analyze it, and over time I can like search for different stocks in different sectors. For example, the last video we just did was on physical data centers, and we kind of realized that physical data centers are actually not very good. Like they're just almost like real estate plays. There's just not a lot of growth. We were seeing like 12% growth year over year, and we're looking for some higher returns. There was one company in there that had potential that if they continued the growth it was going to have, then they're going to definitely have an explosion in their stock price. But we're not positive on that per se. So we're going to go ahead. I think today we are going to do. My goodness. Or we're going to go ahead and do QPUs, which is quantum processing units, aka quantum computers. So let's go ahead and jump into that. I have a few companies here listed. Let's go ahead and do quantum compute. I have a few different companies that are already in mind. IonQ, RGTI, QBTS.
Got it. Let's dive into quantum computing, QPU. You mentioned 3 companies you're looking at. IonQ, Rigetti Computing, RGTI, D-Wave Quantum, QBTS. I also see you wrote QUBTS. That's likely Quantum Computing Inc., QUBT. Before we start scoring, I want to set the right expectations. Quantum computing is still very early stage. Most of these companies are pre-revenue or have very small revenue, and they're burning cash heavily. This sector is high risk, high volatility. Question for you. Do you want to score these 4 companies, IonQ, RGTI, QBTS, QUBT, the same way we did the other sectors, with 5 scoring categories? Or would you prefer a simpler approach, since this is such an early stage sector? Let me know how you want to structure it.
No, I think we should definitely kind of score them the same way that we were.
Got it. Let's keep the same structure. Here's the scoring framework for quantum computing, QPU. Quantum computing scoring out of 50. 1. Current technical capability. How advanced is their actual quantum hardware right now? 2. Roadmap and future potential. How credible and ambitious is their long-term development plan? 3. Commercial progress. Are they generating real revenue or have meaningful customer contracts? 4. Partnerships and backing. Quality of partnerships, investors, or government support. 5. Execution risk. How well are they executing? Burn rate, team, milestones hit. Would you like me to give initial scores for IonQ, RGTI, QBTS, and QUBT using these 5 categories?
Yes, please.
Here's a direct scoring for the quantum computing sector. Quantum computing QPU. Scoring 1. Current technical capability. IonQ 8.5. Rigetti RGTI 7. D-Wave QBTS 7.5. QUBT 5. 2. Roadmap and future potential. IonQ 8.5. Rigetti RGTI 7.5. D-Wave QBTS 7. QUBT 6. 3. Commercial progress. IonQ 6.5. Rigetti RGTI 5. D-Wave QBTS 7. QUBT 4. 4. Partnerships and backing. IonQ 9. Rigetti RGTI 6.5. D-Wave QBTS 7.5. QUBT 5. 5. Execution risk. IonQ 7. Rigetti RGTI 6. D-Wave QBTS 5.5. QUBT 4. Total scores. IonQ 39.5 out of 50. D-Wave QBTS 34.5 out of 50. Rigetti RGTI 32 out of 50. QUBT 24 out of 50. Would you like me to explain the reasoning behind any of these scores, especially IonQ versus the others?
Yeah, I would kind of like to do like a deep dive on these different companies and get a good understanding of, who they are and what they do.
Here's a clean, straightforward deep dive on each company. 1. IonQ. IonQ, the current leader among pure-play quantum companies. They use trapped ion technology. They have the highest technical performance right now in terms of qubit quality. They're the most well-funded of the group and have strong partnerships with Microsoft and Amazon. They're also the most popular among retail investors. 2. Rigetti Computing, RGTI. They build superconducting quantum computers, the same approach as IBM and Google. They focus heavily on getting quantum computers to work together with classical computers. They've been around for a long time, but have struggled with consistent progress and profitability. 3. D-Wave Quantum, QBTS, the most different of the group. They don't build general-purpose quantum computers. Instead, they specialize in quantum annealing, which is very good at solving specific types of optimization problems. They actually have real customers using their systems today, which is rare in quantum computing. 4. Quantum Computing Inc., QUBT, the most speculative and controversial of the 4. They claim to be building a different type of quantum technology, photonic-based. Many people in the industry are highly skeptical of their claims. They have very little revenue, and their technology progress is heavily questioned. Which one of these would you like me to go deeper on first? Or would you like me to compare them on specific aspects like technology, revenue, or risk?
Let's just go like one by one for the different companies.
Got it. Let's go one by one, starting with IonQ. IonQ Deep Dive. IonQ is currently considered the strongest pure-play quantum computing company among public names. They use trapped ion technology, which many experts believe offers better qubit quality and stability compared to other approaches. Key points. They have the highest quantum volume, a measure of performance among public companies. Strong cloud partnerships. Their systems are available on both Microsoft Azure and Amazon Breakit. They've been hitting most of their technical milestones on time. They still generate very little revenue, mostly from research contracts and early commercial deals. They have a strong cash position compared to most of their peers. My honest take, IonQ is the safest bet in the quantum sector, but even they are still very early stage and highly speculative. Want me to go into more detail on any specific part of IonQ, or are you ready to move on to the next company, Rigetti?
Let's go back into their like partnerships and stuff like that.
IonQ, partnerships and backing, deep dive. Here's what IonQ has in terms of partnerships. Microsoft Azure. IonQ's quantum computers are directly integrated into Azure's cloud platform. This is one of their strongest partnerships. Amazon Breakit. Their systems are also available through Amazon's quantum cloud service. Google Cloud. They also have integration with Google Cloud Marketplace. U.S. Air Force. They have research contracts with the U.S. Air Force and other government agencies. Institutional backing. IonQ was originally spun out of the University of Maryland and Duke University. They've raised money from top-tier investors. Important context. Even though they have these big cloud partnerships, it doesn't mean these companies are using IonQ's quantum computers for production workloads. Most usage right now is still for research and experimentation by their customers. Would you like me to go deeper into how much actual revenue these partnerships are generating? Or are you ready to move on to the next company, Rigetti?
Let's talk about the revenue real quick.
Here's the honest picture on IonQ's revenue. IonQ is still in very early stages when it comes to revenue. Their 2025 full-year revenue was approximately $44 million. This is up significantly from previous years, but it's still very small. Almost all of their revenue currently comes from government research contracts and early commercial pilot deals, not from selling quantum computing time to major corporations. They are not yet profitable. They are still burning cash every quarter, roughly 40 to 50 million per quarter in operating losses. Quick summary. While their revenue is growing fast percentage-wise, the actual dollar amount is still tiny. $44 million per year is very small for a company with a multi-billion-dollar market cap. This is typical for quantum computing companies right now. The technology is still mostly in the research phase, not the commercial phase. Would you like me to compare IonQ's revenue to the other quantum companies, or are you ready to move on to the next company?
We can move on to the next company.
Alright, next up, Rigetti Computing, RGTI. Rigetti Deep Dive. Rigetti is one of the oldest pure-play quantum computing companies. They use superconducting qubits, the same technology approach that IBM and Google are using. Key points. They've been around since 2013, making them one of the more experienced teams in the space. They focus heavily on building full-stack quantum systems, both hardware and software. They've had a rocky history. They've gone through multiple rounds of layoffs and struggled with consistent technical progress. Their current systems are smaller scale compared to IonQ's in terms of performance metrics. Like IonQ, their revenue is still very low, in the low tens of millions. Honest assessment. Rigetti is generally considered to be behind IonQ in both technology and momentum right now. Would you like me to go deeper into Rigetti's partnerships, revenue, or technology first, or just give you the highlights and move on to the next company?
Let's go ahead and go over partnerships.
Rigetti, RGTI. Partnerships deep dive. Rigetti's partnerships are noticeably weaker compared to IonQ. Here's the current situation. Amazon Bracket. This is their strongest partnership. Rigetti's quantum systems are available through Amazon's quantum cloud platform. NVIDIA. They have a technical partnership with NVIDIA to integrate quantum computing with classical computing using NVIDIA's Q2Q platform. U.S. government. They have received some government contracts and grants, but nothing on the scale of IonQ's deals. No Microsoft partnership. Unlike IonQ, Rigetti is not currently integrated with Microsoft Azure. Overall take. Rigetti's partnership profile is clearly behind IonQ. They mainly rely on Amazon, whereas IonQ has relationships with both Microsoft and Amazon. Their lack of a major cloud partnership with Microsoft is considered a meaningful disadvantage. Would you like me to talk about their revenue next, or are you ready to move on to the third company, D-Wave?
We can talk about revenue.
Rigetti RGTI, revenue breakdown. Rigetti's revenue is even smaller than IonQ's. In 2025, their total revenue was approximately $13 to $14 million. This is very low, roughly 1/3 of IonQ's revenue. The majority of their revenue comes from government research contracts and small development deals. They have almost no commercial customer revenue at this point. Quick comparison. IonQ, Celiating $44 million in 2025. Rigetti, $13 to $14 million in 2025. This shows just how early stage Rigetti still is from a commercial standpoint. They are burning through cash significantly faster than they're bringing in revenue. My honest take. Their revenue is one of the biggest concerns with Rigetti right now. The gap between IonQ and Rigetti is quite large. Would you like me to move on to D-Wave, QBTS next?
Yeah, let's do D-Wave.
D-Wave Quantum, QBTS, Deep Dive. D-Wave is the most different of all the quantum companies we've discussed. Key difference. While IonQ and Rigetti are trying to build general-purpose quantum computers, which can theoretically do many different things, D-Wave specializes in quantum annealing. This is a specific type of quantum computing that's very good at solving optimization problems. Things like route planning, scheduling, logistics, and portfolio optimization. Main points. They are the only one of these companies that has real commercial customers today. They've sold systems to governments and companies, notably in automotive, logistics, and finance. They've been around the longest, founded in 1999. They actually have working quantum systems being used in production environments, very rare in this industry. Their approach is more limited. It can't run the same broad algorithms that IonQ or Rigetti are targeting. Would you like me to go into their partnerships or revenue first?
So that's one thing that I like that I just heard there is the fact that they're already selling to their customers, where they're actually putting them into manufacturing. Now, this is a new investment that I'm looking into. So like I don't have like a lot of feedback on these companies yet, and I'm gonna have to do a lot further of a deep dive. I need to know like their financials more. I need to just know a lot more things about these companies. But right now I'm kind of just in an exploratory state. It's one of the things that I want on my portfolio. Maybe it's just a small amount, but like part of the reason why I want this in my portfolio is because compute is one of the other theses of our AI play. So we have AI, and then we have compute. Okay, AI is the main thesis, then compute is the execution, whether it be training or whether it be the inference. But either way, I think it's just going to take a huge amount of compute. And I think that the compute can be divided up by different ways, like meaning like we could be using GPUs, CPUs, RAM, um, and these QPUs, these quantum computers. And when I say divided up in certain ways, you may say like, well, what do you mean? Like all these things are different. Well, the thing is like one thing that we're doing with technology that's different today is we're like layering technologies together where we're actually getting the maximum amount of benefit by layering these together. Like if I'm not mistaken, a GPU is actually like a bunch of memory together. So it's more short term than like a CPU. Uh, but the point being is like people are doing things like they're just putting like a bunch of like a bunch of memory together to basically like simulate things like a GPU. I'm just giving that as like a generic example, right? Or they're putting a bunch of GPUs together to do what like it would take 10,000 computers to do, and they're doing it with way less GPUs. So we're gonna have like this transition, and we've already seen this transition. We went from using CPUs only to like using GPUs for gaming to now like GPUs are running the entire like AI space, right? And then there's going to be memory bottlenecks and all that good stuff. But the same thing is going to be happening with these QPUs. Like what happens once these QPUs are able to process even faster than GPUs, right? Maybe they're 10x better than a GPU, or when you start having QPUs and memory being able to like they're talking to each other where I don't want to get too far into that, but where you have your QPUs talking to your memory, or your QPUs talking to your GPUs. I think that's where things get really creative. And for example, this is one of the things that one of these companies was doing with NVIDIA is they're essentially taking these QPUs and tying a bunch of them together with RAM so that these QPUs could talk across to each other, and they could basically do bigger data chunks. But like as of right now, the QPU on its own, I think has a lot of limitations. But I think when you go and you pair it with like memory and GPUs and stuff like that, now you can create this cross communication, and also pairing QPUs together. You start getting this cross communication where these things start to become very functional, where you can use the QPU for particular functions that are maybe way better than any capability that we have right now. But there'll be other major limitations, right? It has this major upside, like maybe I can compute this thing that would normally take, even a GPU a year to process. I can process it in like an instance. The issue is maybe I can only have like this much data at one time, but I can solve like a complex equation. So the complexity of the problem it can handle like way more, but maybe the size of the problem it can't handle very well. So with that instance, like that might be something where there should be infrastructure that's made, at least in the short term, to uh, make these QPUs more functional. But the point being is, once these QPUs become more functional, which it seems like this D-Wave company has already done, is they've already have came up with a QPU that is functional, whereas these other two companies have not really came up with a functional unit that they're selling to the customer. Right? It's all like R&D. Why is it R&D and this other company has something that's functional? It's because they found a way to make it functional, right? Whether it's tying it with GPUs or CPUs or whatever other hardware they need to tie it with to get it to be functional for whatever specific use case is. And also, too, with that being said, they can also keep like a data structure specific. Because if I'm not mistaken, like one thing's like a data, like these things don't work exactly like a regular computer works, where they can just process anything and everything. And I think that's one of the differences, like they mentioned in this. The two companies are really trying to do like a generalized QPU, which means it can process more similar to like how a computer processes, versus like D-Wave. It sounds like they have a technology where it's a QPU specifically designed for a specific use case, but then created a good usability. So maybe you have to in the future create a QPU that works for each individual use case, right? Well, I say each individual use case, the use case can be massive where it makes sense, right? Maybe it's like autonomous driving or something like that, right? And then you could have QPUs that's just like for nothing but driving. And so, yes, they would be specialized, but yet they'd be functional and potentially able to process information much more quickly. Or let's say, for instance, like how we're talking about with some of our Grok stuff, that like, if a Tesla robotaxi goes and asks Grok and says, "Hey Grok, I'm stuck. Can you help me out of this condition? I'm stuck at a red light or something. I don't know what to do." This is FSD asking Grok what it should do. Well, then let's say Grok is operating on a QPU and is able to instantaneously come back with a response, right? Where the internet lag is the issue, not any compute side on like the back end. Which, don't get me wrong, like I think that they could still prioritize and use GPUs and stuff like that versus QPUs. But I'm just giving a use case that where a QPU could come into effect, where it would be very like useful. Again, you could do like that with like humanoid robots as well, where the humanoid robots communicating back with the data center, but the data center has a bunch of QPUs, GPUs, all the different things, right? But we're just going to go into a future where we have all these different compute types. So the point being is that's why like I'm interested in this topic. It's also a new thing, so I like newer, high risk stuff. Again, I'm probably going to put a very minimal amount of money in this. I'm probably going to put it in as options. Most of everything I'm probably going to put in as options is like a 2-year leap. And just, and some of the things will fail, right? And by the way, I roll over my options too, so I don't let them expire. So like, a year from now, I might sell out of those and buy into the next one that's another year out. But what was that? Oh, but so that's why I'm looking into these QPUs. We'll go ahead and wrap up this video here. Somebody just got here, so I'm gonna go say what up, and hopefully this video is valuable. Let me know if you got any good information out of it. We'll go into some more traditional stuff in the next video where we'll go over like some like GPUs and stuff like that. Actually, I'm pretty excited to get into energy, but again, I don't know a lot about the energy space about as far as like stocks. But this is why I'm doing this, right? I'm trying to figure out what I want to invest into, and but energy is definitely one of them. And I've also been invested in like Bloom Energy and stuff. So yeah, just excited to get into that one and really kind of try to find some other plays that I just haven't quite necessarily thought of. And again, finding the good growth companies where they haven't necessarily been discovered yet, but they're right on that verge of being discovered. But yeah, again, catch you on the next one, and watch the first video if you want to kind of get a initial overview of this. Sorry guys, I'm like tired right now. The investment strategy or whatever, and I'll catch you in the next one.